when the church was originally thought of, it was really to do with the increasing population in Paisley. The first church obviously was the Abbey, and then what was called the Low Church was built. But as the population increased, the town council realised that more places of worship had to be provided. So the style of it I find excellent for worship, in that the pews all come round. It's not in the cruciform style like, for instance, Paisley Abbey would be. And so you can have a service with a lot of people or not very many people, and there's still there an intimacy of worship. I think it was typical in these days for the bailies of the town would commission, and I know that's what happened in this case, bailies would commission masons to actually build the church, and the various artisans that would also come together. So at that time there wouldn't be one firm, it was really under the town council. They would kind of act as, I suppose, contractor. So it was really a mixture of masons and the various tradesmen that would all come together, and eventually the church opened in 1754. I suppose the claim to fame of the building is that it has Europe's largest unsupported ecclesiastical ceiling. Now that's quite a mouthful. In other words, when you go into the church building itself, there's no pillars holding up the ceiling. Now, it's quite a large ornate ceiling. You would expect something like that to be held up with pillars, but all the steelwork is above the ceiling, which holds it all in place. And so that's a particular feature of this church. The organ was installed in the church finally in the last year of the 1800s, in 1899, and it was built by Hill & Son of London. It's a particularly fine instrument. It's undergone various bits and pieces of work over the years and upgrading. It's played every Sunday. Leads our worship. We're particularly lucky in our own congregation to have a very fine organist, a man called David Murray, and a 4-part singing choir. We do get from time to time, we do get concerts in here. We had a performance of the Messiah in here. That would be, the church would be conducive to that, because the organ console itself can move. It's connected to the main part of the organ by lights of, well, in modern parlance, multi-core, and so it can be moved about. The seats can be taken away, so you can house quite a large choir or small orchestra. The tower's quite an interesting thing. It wasn't part of the original building. I think the reason being, again, the town council felt like the prominent position of this church, which was, although it's now Oakshaw Trinity, formerly was Paisley High Church, and being in the highest part of Paisley, they also felt that a towering steeple, would be quite dominant on the landscape, and so they commissioned that, and it was added on, if you like, to the current building. The water ingress into the tower is quite bad, and it floods what's called the vestry, my office, if you like, in the church. And so we're always pressing the council to do the necessary maintenance and repairs. And we also have to understand that there's budgets there that the council have to work to too. But at this moment in time, and literally, they are about to undertake repairs to the towers, which will hopefully cure the water ingress problem. There's no names that you would instantly recognise in the graveyard as being, oh yes, that name's familiar. I think the main dignitaries of the town are most likely between the two cemeteries at Hawkhead, and particularly up in Woodside Cemetery. We're not aware of likes of Robert Tannahill or anything like this. Paisley poets were not aware of anybody of that note in our graveyard. Although for people throughout the world who come to visit every year, from Australia, Canada, South Africa, all the places where people would have immigrated from, we get a steady stream throughout, especially the summer, and we have all the records of those that are buried in the graveyard here, so we can point people to where they are. Church ghosts. I'm not aware of any church ghosts. We would be terribly interesting if we did have one. So I'm certainly not averse to somebody finding one if they can go up in the organ loft and we can get a vet fielding in or something and find out if we actually have one. Obviously there's stories associated with the congregation, one of the chief ones being when the tower was being constructed, there was a worker did fall to his death, and you will see on the pavement outside 3 symbols depicted: his glasses, a hanky, and there's also a symbolism of his heart. So these are actually outside on the pavement out there, which was a very unfortunate, sad event, but part of the folklore at that time. We have lots of spiritual presence in the church, but whether it's a ghost. Originally there was 3 congregations that made up Oakshaw Trinity, but essentially there are 3 Church of Scotland congregations came together: Orr Square Church, Paisley High Church and St John's Church. And at the time the Congregational Church from Schoolwind, which the Congregational Church then merged with United Reformed Church. An awful lot of churches now, and one of the former churches here, Orr Square, just over the way there, is now flats. And whilst the building's preserved as flats, it's nice to keep one as a place of worship. So long may it continue. I mean, obviously with church rolls since the 1960s have just nosedived in many respects, and so you also have to be sensible. There was no need for 4 churches up in this hill. I mean, going back into the past, there was, I thought there was 7. Somebody told me recently there was 9 churches up in this hill, and now there's only 1. But that perhaps reflects good sense, in that there's no point in having a whole lot of churches, a half or a quarter full. You're better to pool your resources and have one vibrant congregation. The church here, it has been here for a long time. I was in conversation with one of the local councillors, Jim Sharkey, who I think described the church here in an interesting way that I hadn't heard before, but I do like his description when he called it one of Paisley's signature buildings. And I like that description of it. I'm from Paisley myself, and so I remember coming here as a youngster for school services, and it's strange to find myself the minister here now. So it's a place that's obviously dear to me, and hopefully for another 250 years.